When I was a kid and a teenager, we went to church every Sunday morning, whether we wanted to or not. Mama got us all dressed up in our Sunday clothes, and we went to church. When I was a real little kid, sometimes after we got dressed, we'd go over to Grandma's house because it was next door. And we'd walk to church because it was close. Grandma loved to walk, and she really loved to walk to church. So me and my oldest sister, she's younger than me, but she's older than my other sister, we used to walk to church with Grandma. And we didn't really understand church that much, so we didn't know what we didn't know. And so we had fun. We had fun because we was walking with Grandma. And we walked to First Baptist Church. Now, I'm not going to show up a picture of First Baptist Church because this video is not about First Baptist Church. But that was just the church that Grandma knew and my mother knew. And my mother was the organist at First Baptist Church, and she was the church secretary. She made the church bulletin. She made the service programs. She took care of the phone calls. She handled the finances. All kind of crap that she had to do. And she loved her job. And she loved being an organist. We had a preacher, Preacher Benson. He was old. As long as I ever knew him, he was an old white-haired guy. And I thought he was a pretty nice guy. I don't know. He's probably part of the patriarchy, so he might not have been as nice as I thought he was. But at least as long as Preacher Benson was there, all the people that I knew who led the church, including my mother, who was the secretary, and the organist, worked there. And then Preacher Benson died, and First Baptist Church fired everybody. Because the new preacher wanted a new staff. Now you might say it was because God called Reverend Harwell to hire a new staff. But I can tell you that my mother was devastated because she loved her God, she loved her church, and she loved her job as a secretary, and she loved playing the organ. I hung out with my mother a lot while she was playing the organ, practicing, and she played a lot of complicated shit. A lot more complicated shit than I've heard at Tabernacle Baptist Church, except when my old pediatrician, when I was a kid, played the organ as a substitute sometimes. He would play Bach after services with no sheet music. I was fascinated by that because I used to hang around when my mother was practicing Bach. But anyway, that is a long digression. After the staff was fired and we had to move to another church, Mother found a job as a pianist at Macedonia Baptist Church, and what is it, Sand Hill? Anyway, it was what she had. I needed. She was always looking for some way to play the organ. At some point, she gave up. I was sad. If y'all listen to my videos, y'all know that I'm an atheist. I became an atheist at 25. I spent a lot of time praying to God, and I never heard the voice of God. I never saw God. I never knew God. There's a clock over there on the wall. Might make a video about that clock one day. Anyway, after a while, Mom decided that she needed a bigger church to raise her children in, so we went to this place. Tabernacle Baptist Church, Carrollton, Georgia. It didn't look exactly like that when we moved in. That gray house was not there. Instead, there was a Sunday school building. There's another picture of the front. That's an old car, isn't it? Anyway, this was a Sunday school building. It was called the new Sunday school building because the Sunday school building that was behind the sanctuary was old. So they built this. And when I was 4, no, I was 5. We might have started when I was 4. I went to kindergarten in this building. And I think we had some fun, and I could do a whole video about going to kindergarten at Tabernacle Church Sunday School building. Mrs. Kidd was my kindergarten teacher. I met a lot of the people that I went to school with in kindergarten at this building. Now it's the Carrollton City Hall. The sanctuary has been torn down, and there's a story, which is why I'm making this video. I think the only building that's left now is this one because the old Sunday school building was torn down. This is the site as it is today. There's the new Sunday school building. The old Sunday school building was here, where this part of the police station is. The fire station, actually, the police station is back here. The sanctuary used to be here. This big round area is where the center of the sanctuary was. And I think the altar would have been right back in here. That's probably why they made this like this. And the front steps were here. Front steps. This is before the big mural glass, which I was quite fond of. This is the big mural glass with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. That is a beautiful piece of work. Today, the section that can be viewed goes from this big column on the left to this big column on the right. And it's in this. This is the chapel at the current Tabernacle Baptist Church, and you can see some part of that image through this little I say little, I mean this hedge is about almost as tall as I am. So I mean it's big, but it just doesn't have the glory of the complete mural. Now, when they were planning for the new building, they had said that we're going to preserve these side panels, and when the new sanctuary is built in the future, we're going to restore the whole thing to its former glory. Well, it's been a long time, and it's not there. It's here. Where are the side panels? I don't know. This big area right here is supposed to be the main sanctuary. This is supposed to be the gym wing. That's where the sanctuary is now, or at least was when I saw it. This is another wing. So you see, it's supposed to be two wings and a chapel, and then a sanctuary thing in the middle. And this huge window is supposed to be transferred to the new sanctuary at some point. It hasn't been done. The last time I was at Tabernacle Church, before I was 25, I think I was 19 or 20, I went to a business meeting in this room. I struggled to find more pictures of this room where you could see the altar and the choir loft and the baptismal. So far, I haven't found them. If any of y'all people out there have got any of those pictures, I'd love to have them, because it was part of my childhood. I'd like to see them again. This whole room had a kind of a cream yellow motif. And on Sunday morning, the sun would shine through this window and light up the whole room. It was glorious. Some of the artwork that has been done in the name of God is just stunning. Some of the cathedrals and other church buildings they're stunning. I hate to see them destroyed in wars and to be left to rot without maintenance. And here the story was about maintenance. We had a business meeting in this room. I was there. I kind of regret going there. I don't even know why I was there that day. But one of our deacons stood up and said, here's the plan. We could spend $1 million and put a new roof on our building, because it's rotting and it's leaking, and sometime in the near future it's just going to fall down. So we need to fix it. Or, if y'all don't feel like that's worth doing, we could spend $4.1 million and build a new building on the outskirts of town. And we'll have all this property to grow in, and we'll bring in so much more people, and it'll be glorious. Well, they were asked, for input. At one point, I stood up and I said, hey, I think the best thing to do would be to spend the $1 million and put a roof on this building and take the other $3 million and give it to poor people, because that's what we do, right? No, Mr. Carpenter. Uh, Sit down. And shut up, basically. I don't know what words were said, but they didn't want to hear my input. So I was just some lowly, poor, regular, one of the plebs in the church. I wasn't one of the people in the church with the big money. I don't know why they bothered asking all the members of the church if they didn't want to hear what we had to say. But I feel like it was a farcical thing to spend $4 million on a new building. A new building. This part here wasn't, the part I was able to see was this wing here and the chapel. I never got a chance to go in that part. I don't know if that's part of the $4 million. I don't know if the sanctuary is part of the $4 million. I don't know if it was just this bit right here that was the $4 million. But I feel like something was lost with this site right here. Remember I told you that my grandmother loved to walk to church? Well, there was a lady that lived down this direction. To the other side of this gray roof, she had her house. This is Carmichael. She was one of the pillars of the church. Now, I don't know if somebody convinced her that it was a good thing or whatever, but Mrs. Carmichael used to walk to church. And if Mrs. Carmichael liked to walk to church like my grandmother liked to walk to church, I feel like she might have been sad when this site was abandoned. This is a big hole in the ground now. Well, it's not a hole in the ground. It's graded. It's a nice park, I guess. But it's a giant plot in the middle of Carrollton that nobody uses. We have parks that people use, and we have parks that people don't use. And every time I've ever driven by this park or walked by this park, there's nobody there. There used to be people there. There used to be 1,000 people on this spot every Sunday. Used to be 200 or 300 people on this spot every Wednesday. But you see, worshiping God does not stop people from abandoning things. So to me, this is a site of ruin that was abandoned by a church dedicated to God, supposedly. We spent $4 million to build a building, and one of our primary charities was Lottie Moon. And I remember a Sunday where this particular year We raised $5,000 for Lottie Mae. Now, y'all, that is a drop in the bucket compared to what we spent on that building. If churches want to advertise that they're doing good for the poor and whoever else, they're doing a sorry amount of it. There was a community of folks that used to walk to church every Sunday morning to go to this church. And now, if they go at all, they have to be bused. Of course, I'm sure all those folks that used to walk to church back when I was a teenager, 40-something years ago, I'm sure they're all dead now because they were all in their 60s and 70s then. So I guess for them now it doesn't matter. Maybe you think you'll see them in heaven someday. Well, I don't have any evidence of that, but I do have evidence of an abandoned church building and $3 million that could have been donated to charity. So you can think about what I think about churches. Now, some years after that, after I was 19 and 20, by the time I was 25, I had had enough of praying to your God and not ever getting an answer. I know all the standard answers. Y'all always say that God always answers. Sometimes he says no or maybe or not yet. But 2,000 years is a long goddamn time to wait for your Savior to come back. In the time that Jesus was alive, he said, according to the story anyway, some of you will not pass, will not see death until I have returned. Or before I have returned, or when I have returned. You will not have died. So within 40 or 50 years, he should have come back by then, right? Well, it's been 2,000 years. And there have been a plethora of people who predicted that this is the year that Jesus will come back. Well, y'all need to stop waiting for Jesus to come back. Because if anything's going to be saved, we're going to have to do it. You didn't do it for this church building. I'd like to go in that church building just to see it again, even though I don't believe in God. I believed in the community. I had a sense of awe when I walked into that building. When I saw this beautiful glass mural and to see it reduced to this tiny rectangle, 1/3 of its former glory. I would hate to be the artist that designed this piece of glass. Here we are, 40 years later, and this glass has not been restored. and the movie has been played. I can't put it back in the toothpaste bottle, tube, whatever. I can't go back. I've never received any evidence that there were any gods, and I sure haven't received any confidence from the people in churches. I was working at Domino's Pizza, and when you deliver pizza, um, we were making $3.25 an hour, which was not the minimum wage, but the minimum wage that you get when you're also receiving tips. So it's less than minimum wage. And the rest we expected to make up in tips. So I figured if everybody tipped me $1, I'd be doing pretty good. So I jumped out of my car and ran to everybody's door with a smile and made their change and didn't ask anybody for a tip ever. Didn't hang around and wait for a tip. And they would go, Mr. Driver, here we want to give you this $2 or $3. It's not much, but we see you working hard and we appreciate your service and thank you very much. And I would say, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And I went to houses where these people had, I mean, you could look at their houses falling down and you knew they were poor folks, but every now and then they could spring for some pizza. These places where a lot of my coworkers never got a tip. And I'd get tipped from some of these folks because I gave them all the same service. It didn't matter whether I went to a rich person's house or a poor person's house or a middle class house or an apartment building or a church or a Southwire or any business in Carrollton. I gave them the same smiling service. And I got tipped by hard-working people. Do you know who I didn't get a tip from? We had a minister of music. And they got rid of him. I loved that guy. Sometime later, we had another minister of music after I had left. But I knew this guy was the minister of music. He lived in an upscale house. You might call it a mansion. Maybe a little bit higher dollar than that. I gave him the same service I give everybody, smiling and jump up to your door, giving you change. Thank you, sir. Have a good night. And I was hoping that one of these days he would say, oh, driver, here. It's not much, but take the $2 or $3. Thank you, sir. Have a good night. That never happened with the minister of music. Not the good old guy that I remember, but the new one. I guess he felt like he gave at the church. He didn't care about the working class. He was up there at the high dollar church positions. So once again, I don't have any evidence of any good thing happening from church. It never occurred to me that I would be making YouTube videos and that I would be telling this story to a bunch of people on the internet. Of course, there's not many people listening to my channel right now, but maybe some of you Christians that go to Tabernacle Baptist Church will hear this story. Maybe somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody will hear this story. Maybe you'll think a little bit more about humanity and about how your charity, instead of being a charity in name only, should receive a whole lot more than $5,000. Because if the church is doing good, you should do something. Just spending more money to make a bigger church building and bigger organ. I hear First Baptist Church is getting a new organ. I wonder what couldn't be fixed about the old one. I know a few things about pipes, and they can be maintained. And that's just like this hole in this building, y'all. I remember the organ at First Baptist Church being a beautiful sounding instrument. I remember hanging out at the outer wall on the left-hand side of the sanctuary as Mother was practicing, and I could feel the lower pipes reverberating in that wall. I'm sure that organ wasn't as big as a lot of the organs around. I mean, you can always add ranks, right? I hate to think that the instrument that I grew up hearing is being replaced. God knows what it'll cost. I'm sure you members of First Baptist Church will know what it's going to cost. Anyway, I just have a real hard time coping with all of these details about church. I think in another video, I think this one's already gotten too long, I'm going to tell y'all about my baptism. I don't know, I might have already mentioned it in some other video, but I think it deserves a video of its own. I love you, bye.